violence is on speed dial. I've seen an exponential increase in violence. We expect to be called out in restaurants or maybe on streets or attacked for our policies. But we don't expect to have a member who is stoking the fires of violence in the context not only of President Trump, who spent 4 years of violently attacking various members of Congress, and these are women of color as well, that makes it even worse.
That was Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee on the threats of violence coming from members of Congress and the importance of Democrats' vote yesterday to censure and remove Republican Paul Gosar from his committee assignments. Action to make up for the violent rhetoric that his party has not only permitted but will now be using as a weapon to govern by retaliation. Joining us now, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, who represents the U.S. Virgin Islands. She served as a House impeachment manager during Donald Trump's second impeachment trial. I first want to ask your feelings in the body and personally about yesterday's censure vote.
Well, I feel that members of Congress don't want to censure their colleagues. That's not something that individuals should revel in. And I think that there was a great degree of a subdued nature on the part of the Democratic Party having to go through this. But of course, we have to have reverence for this body, for the House itself. And that means that members have to conduct themselves in a certain manner. The fact that we even have to go through magnetometers right now because of threats to members of Congress, because of the concern that we have that members do not respect Congress itself, those who are charged by their constituents to uphold the law and to, this is in fact the greatest symbol of democracy, and it's not being respected. And so, I'm also very upset and frustrated, disappointed in my Republican colleagues who know that what Paul Gosar did was obviously incorrect, and the lack of leadership on the part of Kevin McCarthy. Listen, the Republican conference could have taken care of this in their own conference, could have done what was needed to ensure that Paul Gosar acted appropriately. They didn't, and so Democrats had to do that, along with, at the same time, Democrats taking the lead and voting for those things that are going to relieve Americans. We see Republicans taking credit for the CARES Act, for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and they're going to take credit for Build Back Better, legislation that they wouldn't even vote for.
Yeah, I mean, and everything you just listed is the evidence that they know they're on the wrong side of the legislation. And Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger's votes make clear that they know they're on the wrong side of history in terms of yesterday's green lighting of the dissemination of violence. To me, that makes it worse. They've got two people who see politics in just there aren't many more conservative people in elected government than Liz Cheney. And for her to be able to see clearly the danger of talking about murdering a colleague makes clear that under truth serum, they must be able to say that too. What does it say that they can't and won't?
Well, it says something about, again, the leadership of the Republican conference and the leadership of the Republican Party, that they are not only attempting to stifle the voices of those within their party, which is causing others who I'm sure would vote if they felt they had the freedom to do that, but are afraid of primaries and afraid really of power more than anything else. This is the scary part, Nicole, that they are not interested in legislating. They are not interested in upholding the tenets of this institution of American values, of our democracy. They're only interested in retaining power. Mitch McConnell did that when he was the majority leader in the Senate by being Mr. No, by never moving forward any legislation that came out of the House. And we're seeing Kevin McCarthy do that now by coming up with false equivalencies for not being a leader and only being interested in potentially being a speaker to reprimand and to keep his party in line.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made a similar point about false equivalencies. Let me show that to you.
When the Republican leader rose to talk about how there are all of these double standards and lists a litany of all these different things, not once did he list an example of a member of Congress threatening the life of another? This is not about a double standard, and what is unprecedented and what is tragic is the descent of transgression in this body.
Where do you go from this place of acknowledging and having it sort of conveyed, not just in this country, but around the world, that on the American right, there is no bottom, not even, as the Congresswoman said there, threats of violence against a colleague?
I think we have to continue pressing on. Individuals like you and like myself, who at one point in time were Republicans, need to continue to speak to those that we know they're on that other side, to come into the light, to come out of the darkness. And at the same time, we need to continue pressing forward with the good work that's happening here, whether it's our president going to Glasgow and letting them know that America's back and America wants to do the right thing, to us passing this agenda that the president has outlined for us, defending our democracy while at the same time making investments in equity, making investments in the American people. I know that the people of the Virgin Islands that I represent are so excited by the infrastructure plan and what it's going to mean for our ports, for our roads, for infrastructure, and for jobs, right? Skilled jobs. We know that 1.5 million jobs a year are going to be created by that legislation. And Build Back Better is going to be a game changer for so many of us that want to bring equity. It is the economic development that I came to Congress to work on. So I think that while we are defending our democracy by things such as the January 6th Select Committee and ensuring that voting rights and other things are defended and calling out Republicans when we need to, we're going to keep pressing forward with the president's agenda, with the Democratic agenda, to ensure that all Americans have a leg up as we come through this pandemic.